The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the UES horizon. Captain Doyen stood with his hands behind his back, watching the endless darkness of space. His ship had been traveling for 3 weeks through the outer rim, mapping new star systems that nobody had explored before. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. Doyen was tired. He had been a captain for 5 years now, and most of that time was spent looking at empty space. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council almost 100 years ago, but they were still treated like children by the older species. The big powers had been traveling through space for thousands of years. Humans were newcomers, and everyone made sure they remembered it. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Kian from the communications station. He was young, only 23, and this was his first deep space mission. His fingers moved quickly across the controls as he tried to clean up the signal. "What kind of something?" Doyen asked, walking over to look at the screen. "It looks like a distress signal. Very weak, but it's definitely there. Coming from a system that's not on any of our maps." Doyen felt his heart beat faster. A distress signal in uncharted space could mean anything. Pirates, shipwrecks, or worse. "How far?" 2 days at full speed, sir." Doyen didn't hesitate. "Change course. Let's see who needs help." 2 days later, the horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a solar system with 7 planets. The third planet from the sun was blue and green, covered with oceans and continents. It looked beautiful from space, but as they got closer, Doyen saw the scars. Huge burn marks covered the surface. Cities that should have been glowing with lights were dark and smoking. Orbital debris floated everywhere. The remains of satellites and space stations that had been destroyed. Someone had attacked this planet, and they had done it recently. "Oh my God," whispered Kian. "Scan for survivors," Doyen ordered. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. He had seen war before, but this was different. This was genocide. The scanners found life signs, millions of them, but they were scattered and hiding underground. The crew picked up a transmission in a language the computer didn't recognize at first. After a few minutes, the translation software figured it out. "Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. The raiders came 3 weeks ago. They destroyed everything. We can't defend ourselves. Our cities are gone. Thousands are dead. If anyone is out there, please help us." The voice was desperate, broken. It repeated the same message over and over. Doyen made contact. Within an hour, a small shuttle came up from the surface. The beings inside were humanoid but smaller, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed too sad for words. They called themselves the Kelhari. Their leader, a council member named Minho, came aboard the horizon. Minho looked exhausted. He explained everything in simple words. The Kelhari were a peaceful people. They had never built weapons or trained soldiers. They made art, music, and studied the stars. For thousands of years, they had lived in peace, trading with nearby systems and exploring the mysteries of the universe. Then the pirates came. Ships filled with criminals from a dozen different species, all looking to steal and destroy. The Kelhari had nothing to fight back with. In 3 days, their entire civilization was nearly wiped out. Their orbital defenses were destroyed in the first hour. Their cities burned. Millions died. "We sent messages to everyone we could reach," Minho said. Tears ran down his blue face. "We begged the Galactic Council for help. They never answered. We sent requests to the Vrexian Dominion, the Thalorian Federation, anyone who might listen. Nobody came. We thought we would all die here, alone and forgotten." Doyen felt sick. "We'll help you," he promised. "I'm sending a full report to Earth Command right now. Humanity won't abandon you." The report traveled through space for 2 days before reaching Earth. The response took another day to come back. During that time, the Horizon's crew did what they could. They sent down medical supplies and food. They helped pull survivors from collapsed buildings. It wasn't enough, not even close, but it was something. When Earth's response finally came, it included orders for Doyen and a recording of what had happened at the Galactic Council. Doyen watched the recording with growing anger. The Council had received the Kelhari's distress calls. They had debated for hours about what to do. One by one, every major species voted against helping. The Vrexians said the Kelhari's territory was worthless. The Thalorians claimed their fleets were busy elsewhere. The Xylar Collective did cold calculations and decided the Kelhari had nothing valuable to offer. The Korath Empire said that any species too weak to defend itself deserved to die. In the end, the Council officially declared the Kelhari system a lost cause. They even passed a resolution forbidding any council member from interfering. Saving the Kalahari would waste resources that could be used for more important things, but humanity had voted differently. Earth's government had watched the council's decision with disgust. They remembered their own history, the times when humans had needed help and someone had been there. They remembered what it meant to stand alone against the darkness. Earth's message was clear. They were sending help. A full relief fleet would arrive in 3 weeks. Medical ships, supply vessels, construction equipment, and enough military escort to make sure the pirates never came back. Humanity was going to save the Kalahari, whether the Galactic Council liked it or not. When Doyen told Minho the news, the Kalahari Council member broke down crying. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you risk so much for us? You just met us. We have nothing to give you. Why would you help?" Doyen put a hand on Minho's shoulder. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "Because no one should have to face the end alone. Because if we don't help, who will?" 3 weeks later, 40 human ships arrived in the Kalahari system. The galaxy watched in shock as humanity openly defied the Galactic Council's orders. But for the Kalahari, it meant hope. For the first time since the pirates had come, they believed they might survive. Admiral Heron stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching the Kalahari homeworld grow larger on the screens. Behind her, fleet of 40 ships followed in perfect formation. Medical vessels, construction ships, supply carriers, and 12 warships to protect them all. It was the largest rescue mission humanity had ever attempted. Heron was young for an admiral, only 38 years old. She had earned her rank during the border wars, but this mission was different from anything she had done before. This wasn't about fighting enemies or protecting territory. This was about saving lives, about showing the galaxy what humanity believed in. As the fleet entered orbit, Heron could see the damage clearly. The Kalahari's beautiful cities were ruins. Smoke still rose from some areas, even though the attack had happened over a month ago. The orbital space around the planet was filled with debris from destroyed satellites and space stations. "Begin operations," Heron ordered. "Medical teams to the surface first, engineering crews behind them. And get those defense platforms built as quickly as possible." Within hours, human ships were landing all over the Kalahari homeworld. Dr. Sujin, the fleet's chief medical officer, set up the first field hospital near the largest surviving Kalahari settlement. She had brought 50 doctors and 300 nurses with her. It wasn't enough for the scale of the disaster, but they would do their best. The Kalahari who came to the hospital were in terrible shape. Many had burns from the orbital bombardment. Others were sick from drinking contaminated water or eating spoiled food. Children cried from hunger. Old people lay dying from treatable diseases because all the Kalahari hospitals had been destroyed. Sujin worked 20-hour days. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of the people she couldn't save. But she also saw the ones who survived because of her work. That made it worth it. Engineer Commander Yuna led a different kind of rescue. Her job was to rebuild the basic systems that kept a civilization alive. Power plants, water treatment facilities, communication networks. The pirates had destroyed everything, but Yuna was determined to fix it. She worked alongside Kalahari engineers, learning their technology and teaching them human methods. The Kalahari were brilliant at theoretical work, but had never needed to build things quickly or under pressure. Yuna showed them how to improvise, how to make things work even when you didn't have the perfect materials. Within 2 weeks, Yuna's teams had restored power to 3 major cities. Water was flowing again. People could communicate with each other. It was just a start, but it was progress. Meanwhile, Captain Doyen was building defenses. His warships worked day and night constructing orbital platforms loaded with weapons and shields. If the pirates came back, the Kalahari would not be defenseless again. Admiral Heron spent most of her time with Minho, the Kalahari Council member. They talked for hours about what the Kalahari needed, what they hoped to rebuild, what kind of future they wanted. Minho was amazed by the humans' dedication. "I still don't understand," Minho said one evening. They were standing on a balcony overlooking a Kalahari city that was slowly coming back to life. Lights were turning on in buildings for the first time in weeks. "Why are you doing all this?" "Your government must be spending billions. Your people are working themselves to exhaustion. And for what? We can't pay you back. We have nothing you need." Heron smiled sadly. "Minho, let me tell you about Earth's history. A few hundred years ago, we almost destroyed ourselves in wars, nuclear weapons, biological plagues, environmental collapse. We came very close to extinction, but we survived because people chose to help each other instead of fighting. We learned that the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak, not exploit them. She looked at the stars above them. When we finally reached space and met other species, we hoped to find civilizations that understood that lesson. Instead, we found the Galactic Council, where might makes right and compassion is seen as weakness. We don't want to live in that kind of galaxy anymore, so we're trying to change it one act of kindness at a time. Minho had tears in his large eyes. You've given us more than just supplies and repairs. You've given us hope. 3 months passed. The human fleet remained in orbit, helping rebuild the Kelhari world. Thousands of humans lived on the surface now. Working alongside the Kelhari, friendships formed. Cultural exchanges happened naturally. Kelhari children played with human children. Artists from both species collaborated on projects. Then the alarm sounded. Captain Doyun was the first to spot them. 23 ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Pirate vessels, the same ones that had attacked the Kelhari before. They were coming back to finish what they started. All ships to battle stations, Admiral Heron ordered. Her voice was calm, but everyone on the bridge could feel the tension. Get the civilians to the shelters and send a message to those pirates. Tell them they've made a big mistake. The pirate commander, a vicious criminal named Torgan, laughed when he received Heron's warning. He had heard about the human presence but wasn't worried. Humans were weak newcomers to the galaxy. What could they possibly do against his experienced raiding fleet? He was about to find out. The battle started badly for the humans. They were outnumbered 2-1 and the pirate ships had heavier weapons. But what the pirates didn't know was that humanity had spent the last 3 months preparing for exactly this moment. The orbital defense platforms that Doyen had built came online. They poured fire into the pirate formation, destroying 2 ships in the first minute. Lieutenant Kian led his fighter squadron in a daring attack run, targeting the pirate flagship's engines. His precise flying allowed him to dodge most of the defensive fire and land several critical hits. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships on both sides were destroyed. Explosions lit up the space around the Kelhari homeworld. Captain Yunji commanded the human frigate Defiance. When she saw a pirate cruiser preparing to fire on the planet's surface, she made a choice. She ordered her crew to evacuate, then rammed her ship directly into the cruiser at full speed. The explosion destroyed both ships. Yunji died, saving thousands of Kelhari civilians. She became a hero to both humans and Kelhari alike. As the battle continued, the pirates realized they were losing. These humans fought with a determination and skill they hadn't expected. More importantly, they fought with a purpose. Every human in that fleet knew exactly what they were protecting. Finally, after losing more than half his ships, Torgan ordered a retreat. The surviving pirate vessels fled into faster-than-light travel. They would not be coming back. The cost was high. 4 human ships were destroyed completely. 8 more were heavily damaged. 347 humans died in the battle. But the Kelhari homeworld was safe. On the surface, millions of Kelhari watched the battle on their screens. They saw humans dying to protect them. They saw Captain Yunji's sacrifice. They saw what real courage looked like. Minho broadcast a message to Earth that night. His voice shook with emotion as he thanked humanity for their sacrifice. The message spread across the entire galaxy within days. Everyone heard it. Everyone saw what humanity had done, and everyone had to ask themselves the same question. If humanity could risk so much for strangers, what did that say about everyone else who had turned away? 6 months after the battle, the Kelhari homeworld looked different. New buildings rose from the ruins of the old ones. Power hummed through restored electrical grids. Clean water flowed to every settlement. The scars of war were still visible, but hope was stronger than the pain. Engineer Commander Yuna worked alongside Kelhari architects to design the new cities. The Kelhari had always loved beauty in their buildings with flowing curves and artistic details. Yuna showed them how to keep that beauty while adding practical defenses. The new structures had reinforced walls that could withstand attacks, but they still looked elegant and welcoming. "You understand us," said Kelhari architect Jiho one day as they reviewed building plans. He was young and brilliant, full of ideas for how to rebuild better than before. Other species would just build ugly bunkers and call it protection. You're helping us stay who we are while becoming stronger. Yuna smiled. Strength doesn't mean giving up what makes you special. The galaxy needs your art and philosophy. We just want to make sure you survive to share it. Dr. Sujin's medical program was growing too. She had trained over 200 Kelhari in emergency medicine and surgery. The Kelhari doctors were quick learners, eager to prevent the kind of suffering they had endured during the attack. In return, they taught Sujin about their own medical techniques, especially their knowledge of regenerative healing. Your bodies heal differently than ours, Sujin explained to her human team. If we can understand how Kelhari tissue regenerates, we might be able to help humans heal faster too. The collaboration benefited both species, but the most important changes were happening in the hearts of both peoples. Humans and Kelhari were becoming friends, real friends who cared about each other. Teacher Sora arrived from Earth with 50 other educators. She established schools where Kelhari children could learn and play again. The classrooms were filled with laughter for the first time since the attack. Human children from the families living on the planet attended the same schools, learning about Kelhari culture while sharing their own. Look at them, Sora said to Minho one afternoon as they watched children playing together in a schoolyard. Human and Kelhari kids were playing a game that seemed to be a mix of soccer and something uniquely Kelhari. They were laughing and shouting, completely unconcerned about being different species. This is the future. This is what the galaxy should be. Kelhari musician Taijin composed a symphony called The Horizon's Promise, named after Captain Doyen's ship. It told the story of humanity's arrival through music, from the darkness of abandonment to the light of hope. When it premiered in the rebuilt concert hall, humans and Kelhari sat together in the audience, many crying at the beauty of it. Human artist Minji collaborated with Kelhari painters to create massive murals on the walls of public buildings. The murals showed both species working together, rebuilding, defending, and dreaming. They became symbols of the partnership, reminding everyone of what they could accomplish together. Young scientist Jiho, the same architect who had worked with Yuna, made a breakthrough that would change everything. He combined human engineering with Kelhari theoretical physics to create a new type of energy shield. It was lighter, stronger, and more efficient than anything either species had built alone. This is incredible, Admiral Heron said when Jiho demonstrated the technology. With these shields, we could protect entire cities from orbital bombardment. Small ships could stand up to much larger vessels. Jiho looked embarrassed but proud. I couldn't have done it without what I learned from your engineers. This isn't human technology or Kelhari technology. It's ours together. While friendship bloomed between humans and Kelhari, the Galactic Council was not happy. They watched humanity's success with growing anger and embarrassment. The major powers had said the Kelhari were not worth saving, but humanity had proven them wrong. Ambassador Jiwan represented humanity at the council. She had been doing it for 10 years, always trying to make Earth's voice heard among the ancient powers. Now she stood before them, facing their accusations. You deliberately disobeyed our directive, the Vrexian ambassador said. His voice was cold and angry. You wasted resources on a worthless species. You risked your ships and your people for nothing. Jiwan stood tall. Nothing? The Kelhari are not nothing. They are millions of living, thinking, feeling beings with thousands of years of culture and knowledge. What's worthless is a civilization that measures worth only in military power and resources. The Xylar representative spoke next. His species was known for cold logic and calculating everything in terms of profit and loss. You have set a dangerous precedent. If every species starts helping others without regard for strategic value, the entire galactic economy will collapse. Maybe it should collapse, Jiwan replied. Maybe an economy based on exploiting the weak and abandoning the helpless deserves to fail. Maybe we need to build something better. The Council voted to impose trade sanctions on Earth. They cut humanity off from certain galactic markets. They threatened to expel Earth from the Council entirely if they continued supporting the Kelhari. Jiwan's response was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Earth will not abandon the Kelhari. We will not bow to threats or sanctions. We believe that all intelligent life has value, regardless of what they can offer us. If that belief makes us unwelcome in your council, then perhaps we're better off outside it. Her speech went viral. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds watched it. Many were inspired. For the first time, smaller species who had always been afraid of the major powers began to speak up. The Tarani, A species that had suffered pirate raids themselves years ago sent a message of support to Earth. The Velesh, who had been barely surviving on the edge of council space, publicly thanked humanity for showing that compassion still existed in the galaxy. On the Kelhari homeworld, Minho watched the political drama with worry. "They're punishing you because of us," he said to Admiral Heron. "Maybe we should tell Earth to stop helping. We don't want humanity to suffer for our sake." Heron shook her head firmly. "We're not suffering. We're standing up for what's right. The sanctions hurt, yes, but our people understand why we're doing this. Most humans are proud of what we've accomplished here. You've become more than just allies, Minho. You're family now." Minho felt tears in his eyes again. Humans made him cry a lot, but they were good tears. Tears of gratitude, of friendship, of hope for a future he had thought was lost forever. "Family," he repeated softly. "Yes, that's exactly what we are." On Earth, support for the Kelhari mission remained strong despite the Council's sanctions. Humans understood what their government was doing and why. They had learned from their own history that doing the right thing was often difficult and costly. But it was still worth doing. The partnership between humans and Kelhari grew stronger every day. They were building something new together, something the galaxy had never seen before, a friendship based not on power or profit, but on mutual respect and genuine care. Neither species knew it yet, but they were about to face challenges far greater than pirate raids or council sanctions. Forces in the galaxy wanted to see them fail, wanted to prove that compassion was weakness, but together, humans and Kelhari would show that kindness could be the greatest strength of all. 2 years had passed since Captain Doyen first discovered the Kelhari distress signal. The partnership between humans and Kelhari was thriving, but Commander Bowman was worried. He worked in Earth's intelligence division, analyzing patterns and threats across the galaxy, and he had found something disturbing. Bowman spread his findings across the table in Admiral Heron's office. Maps, reports, communication intercepts. They painted a dark picture. "Look at these attack patterns," Bowman said, pointing to the maps. The raid on the Kelhari wasn't random. Over the past 30 years, there have been similar attacks on 15 other vulnerable species in the Outer Rim. All of them were peaceful civilizations with minimal defenses. All of them were destroyed completely. Heron studied the maps carefully. 15 species wiped out? Why haven't we heard about this before? Because nobody cared, Bowman said bitterly. Just like with the Kelhari, the Galactic Council declared all these species strategically worthless. No one investigated the attacks. No one asked questions. These civilizations just disappeared and the galaxy moved on. Kelhari historian Su-Yun had been helping Bowman with his research. She spoke up now, her voice shaking slightly. "I found references to some of these species in our old archives. The Kelhari traded with a few of them centuries ago. They were artists, philosophers, scientists. They had so much to offer the galaxy, and they're all gone now." "But why?" Heron asked. "What's the purpose of destroying these civilizations? Pirates usually want to steal resources, not commit genocide." Bowman pulled up another file. "That's what bothered me too. So I dug deeper into the financial records we could access, and I found money trails. The pirate fleets that attacked these worlds were all funded by the same source." He brought up an image on the screen, the symbol of the Xylar Collective. "The Xylar have been secretly paying pirates to wipe out vulnerable species for decades," Bowman continued. "They want to clear the Outer Rim for their own expansion. If they use their military to attack these worlds directly, the Council would have to respond. But pirate raids, those can be ignored as unfortunate accidents." Heron felt sick. "And the other major powers?" "Either they knew and didn't care or they deliberately looked away. The Vrexian Dominion benefits from keeping the Outer Rim unstable. The Thalorian Federation profits from refugee crises. The Korath Empire just enjoys watching weaker species die. They're all complicit." Heron stood up, her face hard with determination. "We're bringing this evidence to the Galactic Council. They can't ignore systematic genocide." 3 weeks later, Ambassador Jiwan stood before the full Galactic Council. The chamber was packed. Every major power had sent their representatives. Smaller species watched from the gallery, hoping for justice. Jiwan presented the evidence methodically. Financial records showing Xylar payments to pirate groups, communication intercepts proving coordination between raiders and Xylar officials, testimony from surviving witnesses, analysis of attack patterns that revealed deliberate targeting of vulnerable worlds. The evidence was overwhelming. 15 civilizations had been destroyed as part of a calculated strategy of ethnic cleansing. Millions of beings had died, and the Galactic Council had done nothing. The Xylar ambassador stood to respond. He was tall and cold, his face showing no emotion. These accusations are lies fabricated by humanity to damage the Xylar Collective's reputation. The evidence is circumstantial at best. We deny any involvement in pirate activities. The Vrexian ambassador joined in. Humanity is clearly trying to create a crisis to justify their illegal protection of the Kelhari. This is a transparent political move. The Thalorian representative simply said, "We abstain from comment on internal matters of the Outer Rim." Jiwan couldn't believe what she was hearing. Internal matters? We're talking about genocide. 15 species have been completely wiped out. How can you just ignore that? The council voted. The major powers voted to suppress the investigation and seal the evidence. The smaller species didn't have enough votes to override them. Justice was denied. Jiwan left the council chamber feeling defeated. But as she walked through the corridors, representatives from smaller species approached her. The Terrani ambassador grabbed her hand. "We believe you. We've seen how the major powers treat those without military strength. Thank you for trying." Others echoed similar sentiments. The evidence might have been suppressed, but word was spreading. The smaller species knew the truth now. Back on Earth, the government faced a decision. The Galactic Council had proven itself corrupt and complicit in genocide. Humanity could no longer work within that system. But what could they do instead? Admiral Heron proposed a radical solution. "If the Council won't protect vulnerable species, we will. We'll create an independent organization dedicated to defending those who cannot defend themselves. The Kelhari have already agreed to join us. We can offer protection to others." Earth's government debated for 3 days. The decision was not easy. Creating such an organization would make them direct enemies of the major powers. But doing nothing meant accepting genocide. Finally, they voted. Humanity would establish the Guardian Initiative, an independent alliance dedicated to protecting vulnerable species that the Galactic Council had abandoned. The announcement shocked the galaxy. Earth and the Kelhari were openly defying the entire power structure that had ruled for thousands of years. Ambassador Jiwan made the declaration in a broadcast that reached every corner of known space. The Galactic Council has failed in its most basic duty, protecting intelligent life. We can no longer trust them to do what's right, so we're building something new. The Guardian Initiative will defend any species threatened by pirates or aggression. We will respond to distress calls that the Council ignores. We will stand with the vulnerable against those who would destroy them. She paused, looking directly into the camera. To every species living in fear, to everyone the major powers have abandoned, we say this: you are not alone. Help is coming. Humanity and the Kelhari stand ready to protect you. Within days, 3 more species joined the Guardian Initiative. The Terrani, who had suffered pirate attacks years ago, the Velesh, who lived on the edge of extinction, the Khitan, a small but fierce warrior culture that admired humanity's courage. The combined fleet began patrolling the Outer Rim, responding to distress signals. They rescued 2 species from active pirate attacks in the first month. Word spread quickly that the Guardian Initiative kept its promises. The Galactic Council was furious. They formally expelled Earth and all Guardian Initiative members from the Council. Trade embargoes were expanded to include anyone who dealt with the initiative. The major powers declared the Guardian Initiative an illegal military organization and branded its members as terrorists. But the Guardian Initiative didn't back down. They had chosen their path, and they would follow it no matter the cost. Humanity and the Kelhari had started something that couldn't be stopped. They had shown the galaxy that another way was possible. On the Kelhari homeworld, Minho looked at the stars with hope. 2 years ago, his people had been dying, abandoned by everyone. Now they were part of something greater, something that gave meaning to their suffering. They would help others the way humanity had helped them. The galaxy was changing, slowly, painfully, but definitely changing. And it was all because one human captain had answered a distress call that everyone else had ignored. The Xylar Collective watched the growing Guardian Initiative with increasing anger. For months they had tried to ignore the upstart alliance. They had hoped political pressure and economic sanctions would force humanity to back down. But the Guardian Initiative kept growing stronger. 8 species now belonged to the initiative. Their combined fleet patrolled vast regions of the Outer Rim. Pirates were being driven away from systems that had suffered raids for decades. Vulnerable civilizations that had lived in constant fear now had protectors. The success was undeniable. The Xylar leadership met in their cold, efficient council chambers. Their expansion plans into the Outer Rim had been completely stopped. Worse, humanity had exposed their genocide campaign. Even though the Galactic Council had suppressed the official investigation, rumors were spreading. The Xylar's reputation was damaged. The Xylar Supreme Commander was a being of pure logic and ruthlessness. He calculated the situation and reached a conclusion. The Guardian Initiative was a threat that needed to be eliminated completely. Diplomatic pressure had failed. Economic warfare had failed. Only one option remained. The Xylar sent an official message to Earth and the Kelhari homeworld. The ultimatum was simple and brutal. Dissolve the Guardian Initiative immediately. Surrender the Kelhari homeworld to Xylar control for colonization, and humanity must agree to never interfere in Outer Rim affairs again. They had 30 days to comply or face total war. Admiral Heron read the ultimatum with Minho standing beside her. The Kelhari leader looked scared but determined. They want my world, Minho said quietly. They want to take everything we've rebuilt and give it to their colonists. They want to erase the Kelhari from existence. Heron put a hand on his shoulder. That's not going to happen. We didn't save your people just to hand you over to the Xylar. Earth's government held an emergency meeting. Some voices argued for compromise. The Xylar Collective was one of the galaxy's major powers. Their military was enormous and experienced. Fighting them would cost countless lives. But others remembered why they had created the Guardian Initiative in the first place. Giving in to the Xylar would prove that might makes right. It would tell every vulnerable species in the galaxy that they would always be victims of whoever was stronger. Admiral Heron was given the task of delivering Earth's response. She recorded a message that would be broadcast across the entire galaxy. Her voice was steady and strong. We have received the Xylar ultimatum. We have considered their demands carefully. And our answer is no. We will not dissolve the Guardian Initiative. We will not surrender the Kelhari to slavery and death. We will not bow to threats or intimidation. She paused, looking directly into the camera with fierce determination. We have seen what happens when good people do nothing. We have learned that some things are worth fighting for. The Xylar Collective has built their power on the bones of innocent species they have destroyed. That ends now. If they want war, they will get one, but they will discover that humanity does not surrender, and we do not abandon our friends. The broadcast electrified the galaxy. Smaller species watched in awe as humanity openly defied one of the ancient powers. Many thought humans were crazy. Some thought they were heroes. Everyone knew that what happened next would change the galaxy forever. The Xylar assembled their war fleet. 200 warships, including their most powerful battlecruisers. They gathered at the edge of the Kelhari system. A massive display of military might intended to terrify their enemies into submission. The Guardian Initiative had 53 ships to defend the Kelhari homeworld. They were outnumbered nearly 4-1, but they had spent 2 years preparing for exactly this moment. Captain Doyun, now a fleet commander, stood on the bridge of his flagship. Around him, the Guardian fleet took up defensive positions. Human ships, Kelhari vessels using Jiho's revolutionary shield technology, Turani medical frigates ready to rescue survivors, Khitan fighters that darted through space like angry wasps. Lieutenant Keon, now a squadron commander, led his pilots through final checks. He had been just a young officer when they first discovered the Kelhari. Now he was a veteran preparing for the biggest battle of his life. Engineer Yuna had spent months preparing the orbital defenses. The satellites she had built formed a deadly network around the planet. Each one was equipped with the combined technology of all Guardian Initiative species. They would make the Xylar pay for every inch of space they tried to take. On the surface, Dr. Sujin prepared emergency medical facilities. She knew there would be casualties. She had trained teams ready to save as many lives as possible. Kelhari doctors worked alongside her, determined to help defend their world. The Xylar fleet began its advance. They moved with confidence, expecting quick victory. The Guardian Initiative was young and inexperienced. What could they possibly do against the might of the Xylar Collective? Admiral Heron gave the order. All ships, hold your positions until they enter range. Let them come to us. This is our home. We know every meter of this space. Make them fight on our terms. The first Xylar ships entered the defensive perimeter. Unis satellites opened fire immediately. The Xylar had expected standard orbital defenses. What they got was a coordinated network that targeted their weak points with precision. 3 Xylar cruisers were destroyed in the first minute. The others activated their shields, but those shields had been designed to stop conventional weapons. Jiho's technology was based on completely different principles. The Xylar shields couldn't adapt fast enough. Kian led his squadron in a daring strike against the Xylar command ship. His pilots flew with skill born from years of training and real combat experience against pirates. They dodged through the massive ship's defensive fire and launched their weapons at critical systems. The battle raged across 3 days and nights. The space around the Kelhari homeworld became a graveyard of destroyed ships from both sides. The Xylar kept pressing forward, believing their numbers would eventually overwhelm the defenders. But the Guardian Initiative fought with a desperation and determination the Xylar hadn't anticipated. Every Guardian ship knew exactly what they were defending. Not territory or resources, but lives. Millions of Kelhari families huddled in shelters below, trusting the defenders above to keep them safe. That knowledge gave the Guardian forces strength that the Xylar couldn't match. On the second day, Captain Doyen's flagship took heavy damage. He refused to retreat, coordinating the defense even as his ship was falling apart around him. On the third day, his crew finally convinced him to transfer to another vessel, minutes before his flagship exploded. Kian's squadron lost 6 pilots, friends he had known for years. But they kept fighting, kept protecting their home. After 3 days of constant battle, the Xylar commander looked at his remaining forces and made a calculation. He had started with 200 ships. Now he had less than 90. The Guardian Initiative had lost 21 vessels, but they were still fighting with unbroken determination. The Xylar valued efficiency above all else. This battle was no longer efficient. The cost had become too high. They had underestimated their enemy badly. The Xylar fleet retreated. For the first time in their long history, they had been defeated by a force they considered inferior. The Guardian Initiative had won, but the victory came at a terrible price. Thousands were dead. Ships were destroyed. Families mourned loved ones who would never come home. On the Kelhari homeworld, there was both celebration and grief. Admiral Heron stood in the memorial garden where they had placed markers for everyone who died defending the Kelhari. Minho stood beside her, crying quietly. "So many died for us," he whispered. "They died defending what they believed in," Heron said softly. "That every life matters. That the strong should protect the weak. That compassion is not weakness but the greatest strength. They died proving to the galaxy that another way is possible." News of the battle spread across every world. The impossible had happened. The Guardian Initiative had defeated a major power, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The victory against the Xylar changed everything. Within weeks, 5 more species requested membership in the Guardian Initiative. They had watched humanity and the Kelhari stand against impossible odds and win. If the Guardian Initiative could defeat the Xylar, maybe they could build something better than the corrupt Galactic Council. The new members brought valuable strengths. The Terrani had advanced medical technology that could heal injuries doctors thought were impossible. The Valesh understood resource management better than any other species, teaching the initiative how to make every supply last longer. The small Khitan people became elite trainers, their warrior culture helping other species learn to defend themselves. Within 6 months, the Guardian Initiative included 12 species. Their combined fleet numbered over 100 ships. Territory under their protection covered a significant portion of the Outer Rim. They had become a true power in the galaxy, though still dwarfed by the ancient empires. Ambassador Jiwan proposed a bold idea during a meeting of initiative leaders. She stood before representatives from all 12 species, each one listening intently. "We started as a defensive alliance," she said. "We came together to protect the vulnerable. But I think we can be more than that. I think we can show the galaxy what real cooperation looks like." Minho nodded eagerly. He had grown from a desperate survivor into a confident leader. The Galactic Council rules through fear and power. They keep species competing against each other. What if we built something based on equality and mutual respect instead? The discussion lasted for days. Finally, they agreed to transform the Guardian Initiative into something bigger. They would call it the Free People's Alliance. It would be a true democratic confederation where every species had an equal voice, regardless of size or military strength. The Alliance Charter was written primarily by Minho and human diplomat Jin'e. They established core principles that would guide their new civilization. Every sentient being had inherent worth. All members would defend each other. Decisions would be made democratically, with each species getting one vote. Force would only be used for defense, never conquest. Most importantly, they rejected the idea that might makes right. In the Free People's Alliance, compassion and cooperation would be strengths, not weaknesses. Teacher Sora expanded her educational work, establishing the Alliance Academy on the Kalahari homeworld. Young people from all member species studied together, learning about each other's cultures and histories. Kalahari students learned human philosophy. Human students studied Tirani art. Khitan warriors taught combat classes to anyone interested. The academy became famous across the galaxy. Parents from non-member species started requesting admission for their children. The school represented everything the Alliance stood for: unity through understanding, strength through diversity, and hope for a better future. But the major powers were not sitting idle. The Galactic Council intensified their economic warfare against the Alliance. They expanded trade blockades and threatened any independent merchants who dealt with Alliance members. They wanted to strangle the Alliance economically, to prove that compassion couldn't survive in a harsh galaxy. Human merchant Captain Wanho became a legend during this time. He was a clever trader who knew every hidden route through space. When the Council blocked normal trade lanes, Wanho found paths through uncharted systems. He led convoys of independent traders who believed in what the Alliance represented. "They think they can starve us out," Wanho said with a grin. "But the galaxy is bigger than they realize. There are always routes they don't control, traders they can't threaten, species who are tired of their bullying." The Alliance also became more self-sufficient. Member species pooled their resources and knowledge. Kalahari scientists worked with human engineers and Tirani biologists. They shared everything freely, creating innovations that benefited everyone. What the Council intended as a crushing blow instead forced the Alliance to become stronger and more independent. Black markets flourished. Secret trade networks grew. Many independent systems, disgusted by the Council's bullying tactics, began quietly supporting the Alliance. The cultural exchange between Alliance species created unexpected benefits. Kalahari music blended with human instruments, creating beautiful new art forms. Tirani medical knowledge combined with Vilesh resource techniques led to revolutionary agricultural methods. Every species learned from each other, and all of them grew stronger together. Artist Minji, who had first come to the Kalahari homeworld as part of the rescue mission, now ran the Alliance Cultural Center. She organized exhibitions where art from all 12 species was displayed together. The differences between their styles were fascinating, but the common themes of hope and unity touched everyone who visited. "Look at this," she told visitors during one exhibition. "This sculpture is Kalahari, this painting is human, this tapestry is Tirani. But they all tell the same story. They all speak about finding family among strangers, about building something better together. That's what makes the Alliance special." 5 years after the Kalahari rescue, the Free People's Alliance included 23 species. Their economy was thriving despite Council sanctions. Their territory was safe and growing. Young people across the galaxy looked at the Alliance and saw hope for a different kind of future. But the major powers watched with growing concern. The Alliance was becoming too successful, too influential. Young people in Council-controlled space were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Why couldn't their governments work together like the Alliance did? Why did the Council measure everything in power and profit instead of welfare and happiness? Protests began on several major worlds. On the Vrexian homeworld, young Vrexians marched carrying signs that said, "Alliance principles for all species," and "Compassion is strength." Similar demonstrations happened on Thalorian planets, in Korath cities, even in some Xylar territories. The Council leadership met in emergency session. They faced a crisis they had never imagined. The Alliance was winning not through military conquest but through example. They were proving that another way was possible, and people across the galaxy were taking notice. The Xylar Supreme Commander spoke with cold fury. "The Free People's Alliance is a threat to the entire galactic order. They must be destroyed before their ideals spread further." I propose a coalition of all major powers. We will assemble the largest fleet in history and end this rebellion once and for all. The other powers agreed. The Vrexian Dominion, the Korath Empire, the Xylar Collective, and reluctantly the Thalorian Federation began assembling their forces. They would crush the alliance and prove that power, not compassion, ruled the galaxy. Admiral Heron received intelligence reports about the fleet being assembled. Over 500 warships were gathering. It was the largest military force ever brought together. The Council powers were risking internal stability to focus everything on destroying the alliance. She called a meeting of all alliance military commanders. Captain Doyen was there, still commanding fleets despite injuries from the last battle. Lieutenant Kian attended, now an admiral himself. Engineer Yuna, Dr. Sujin, and leaders from all 23 species gathered to discuss their options. We can't win a straight military engagement, Doyen said bluntly. They outnumber us 5-1, maybe more. Even with our technology advantages, those odds are impossible. Then we don't fight a straight engagement, Heron replied. We fight smart. We use everything we've learned, and we remember what we're fighting for. They're bringing overwhelming force, but we have something they don't. We have unity, purpose, and the certainty that what we're doing is right. Minho stood up, his voice strong. We've faced impossible odds before. We've survived when everyone said we would fail. If this is our last stand, then we'll make it count. We'll show the galaxy what real courage looks like. The Alliance began preparing for the greatest battle of their existence. They called in every ship, every resource, every ally. This would be their defining moment. Win or lose, the galaxy would remember what happened next. The Coalition fleet assembled at the border of Alliance space. 537 warships from 4 major powers, the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. They brought enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. The Coalition commanders sent their ultimatum. The Free People's Alliance had 30 days to surrender unconditionally and dissolve. All military assets would be seized. All Alliance leaders would face trial for crimes against the Galactic Order. The member species would be placed under Council supervision indefinitely. Admiral Heron read the ultimatum aloud to the Alliance Council. 23 species representatives listened in silence. When she finished, nobody spoke for a long moment. Finally, Minho stood. 5 years ago, my people were dying. We had lost everything. We sent messages begging for help and everyone ignored us. Everyone except humanity. They came when they didn't have to. They fought when they could have walked away. They showed us that some things matter more than power or profit. He looked around at the other representatives. We built something beautiful together. Something the galaxy desperately needs. If we surrender now, we prove that the Council was right all along. That power is all that matters. That compassion is weakness. I say we refuse. Whatever comes next, we face it together. One by one, every species representative stood and agreed. They would not surrender. They would not give up the dream they had built. Admiral Heron composed Earth's response. She kept it simple. The Free People's Alliance rejects your ultimatum. We will not surrender. We will not submit to threats. If you want war, you will have it. But know that you are attacking people who fight for something greater than themselves. Come if you must. We will be ready. The deadline approached. The Alliance fleet, 147 ships, positioned themselves for battle. Everyone knew the odds were impossible, but they also knew what they were fighting for. Then something unexpected happened. 3 days before the deadline, the Thalorian Federation withdrew from the Coalition. Their ancient ambassador appeared in a broadcast that shocked everyone. The Thalorian Federation has watched the Free People's Alliance for 5 years, the ambassador said. Her voice was tired but determined. We have seen species working together in genuine cooperation. We have seen compassion produce strength instead of weakness. Many among our people, especially our youth, believe the Alliance represents something important. We will not participate in their destruction. The Thalorian withdrawal reduced the Coalition fleet to 400 ships, still overwhelming, but it was a crack in the united front. More importantly, it showed that not everyone in the major powers supported this war. Across Council space, protests intensified. Millions of beings marched in the streets of major worlds, demanding their governments stop the war. They carried signs supporting the Alliance. They sang songs about unity and hope. The rulers of the ancient powers realized with growing alarm that they were losing the hearts of their own people. The deadline expired. The Coalition fleet advanced into Alliance space. The Battle of New Dawn began. For 2 weeks, fleets clashed across multiple star systems. Captain Doyen led the defense with brilliant tactics, using the Alliance's superior coordination to offset the Coalition's numerical advantage. Admiral Kian's fighter squadron struck at critical targets with precision. Engineer Yuna's defensive networks made the Coalition pay dearly for every system they tried to take. The casualties were horrific on both sides. Entire ships were destroyed in seconds. Thousands died every day. Dr. Sujin worked without rest, trying to save as many wounded as possible. The medical teams from all Alliance species worked together, treating anyone who needed help, even enemy casualties. After 2 weeks of continuous fighting, both fleets were exhausted and bloodied. The Coalition had lost over 200 ships. The Alliance had lost 63. Neither side could claim victory, but neither would surrender. Then Admiral Heron did something that stunned everyone. She broadcast a message simultaneously to both fleets and to the entire galaxy. Her face appeared on every screen, tired but determined. "Stop," she said simply. "Just stop. Look at what we're doing. Millions have died in this war. For what? To prove that might makes right? To show that the old powers can crush anyone who dares to dream of something better?" She paused, letting her words sink in. The Free People's Alliance never wanted war. We only wanted to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. We wanted to show the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than competition, that compassion produces better results than cruelty. I'm offering peace. Real peace, not surrender. Let's meet at New Dawn Station and negotiate a new future for the galaxy. A future where all species have a voice, where the vulnerable are protected, where strength is measured by how we treat others. We don't need more war. We need understanding. The Coalition commanders were divided. Some wanted to press the attack, believing victory was still possible, but others had been watching their own casualties mount while gaining nothing. They had seen Alliance medical teams treating enemy wounded with the same care as their own people. They had heard from their crews about the determination of Alliance defenders fighting to protect their homes. The Korath Admiral surprised everyone by accepting the ceasefire first. His fleet withdrew to a neutral position. Once one fleet stopped fighting, others followed. Within hours, the entire Coalition had agreed to negotiations. The negotiations at New Dawn Station lasted 6 months. Ambassador Ji-won led the Alliance delegation with Minho always at her side. They met with representatives from all the major powers and dozens of smaller species who demanded to be included. It was difficult work. The major powers didn't want to give up their dominance, but they couldn't ignore what had happened. The Alliance had proven that cooperation worked. More importantly, their own people were demanding change. The final agreement was called the New Dawn Accords. The old Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place, the United Galactic Assembly would represent all species equally. Every intelligent species would have one vote, regardless of military strength or territorial size. Mutual defense pacts would protect vulnerable species. Democratic principles would guide galactic governance. Not every major power signed immediately. The Xylar Collective and Vrexian Dominion refused for years, remaining isolated and bitter. But one by one, more species joined the assembly. The tide of history had shifted. 20 years after Captain Doyen first answered the Kelhari distress signal, the galaxy was transformed. The United Galactic Assembly included over 200 species. The principles that the Free People's Alliance had fought for were now galactic law. Admiral Heron retired from military service. She spent her days on the Kelhari homeworld, now a joint human-Kelhari world where both species lived together as one people. Teacher Sora's Alliance Academy had grown into a university attracting students from across the galaxy. One evening, Heron stood with Minho on a balcony overlooking the rebuilt Kelhari capital. The city sparkled with lights. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went from the spaceport. Music drifted up from the streets where humans, Kelhari, and dozens of other species walked together in peace. "Do you ever regret it?" Minho asked. "All those years ago when your people decided to help us?" "So much pain came from that choice. So many died." Heron smiled and shook her head. "We gave the galaxy something it desperately needed. Not weapons or territory, but an example. We proved that compassion isn't weakness, that the measure of a civilization isn't how powerful they are, but how they treat those who cannot defend themselves." She gestured to the city below. "Look at what we built together. Every species down there is proof that one act of courage can change everything." We didn't just save the Kalahari. We saved the idea that the galaxy could be better. Minho felt tears in his eyes again, but they were good tears. Thank you, he whispered, for answering our distress call, for not turning away when everyone else did, for showing us that we weren't alone. You're welcome, Heron said softly, but you should know something. You saved us too. You reminded humanity why we reach for the stars, not for conquest or profit, but to find friends among the endless dark, to build bridges instead of walls, to prove that kindness matters. The story of humanity and the Kalahari became legend across the galaxy. It was taught in schools on every world, not as propaganda but as truth. A reminder that every species, no matter how young or small, can change the course of history through courage and compassion. In the archives of the United Galactic Assembly, there was a memorial wall listing everyone who died fighting for a better galaxy. At the top, in letters that caught light from 100 different suns, were simple words that captured everything. They stood when others turned away. And beneath it, the answer that defined humanity's greatest gift to the stars, because it was the right thing to do. The end.